guess.
Welcome to a shorter edition of the Podwans podcast, kind of talking about a couple things as we ramp up for D23. There's rumors of I am getting prostate YouTube video recommendations right now.
Nice.
That's great. But yeah, we're talking about stuff ramping up for D23 because Skeleton Crew may be getting a trailer, but based on previous D23s, I'm not going to hold my breath on that. And also, there's a lot of discourse around the Star Wars Outlaw game coming from Ubisoft that releases this month, at the end of the month. Hereth, are you excited for Outlaws or Skeleton Crew?
Outlaws. Getting into that, obviously, and then I guess we'll touch on Skeleton Crew a little bit because I saw the trailer for that. But for Outlaws specifically, to me, it looks fun. You know, it looks like a typical Ubisoft open world game, which I do love Ubisoft open world games. It looks like a little bit mixed of like Watch Dogs meets The Division meets Assassin's Creed a little bit with like the stealth mechanics. So like it looks fun to me, and I can't wait for the game to drop because we're almost like 2.5 weeks away from it coming out. Because I got the gold edition for the game.
Yeah, like I'm not big on the pre-orders. I know a lot of people are getting hung up on pre-order pricing and gold, ultimate, platinum, super, ultra editions. And you know, I think the one thing that people are saying is that there's like a mission that's locked behind one of the special editions or pre-order bonus or something like that.
Yeah.
And for me, that's always a wait and see. There's been tons of games that have had like story DLC, you know, pre-release that'll be, you know, part of a package or something like that. Outlaws is not the first game to do it. Ubisoft is also not the first company to do it. And in my experience, a lot of these sideline DLCs do not impact the story in any significant way, shape, or form. They just build upon them. And, you know, take it as you will. I don't think it's the best business practice, but at the end of the day, for $70, it seems like you're still going to be getting a full and complete game. So I am excited. I am not expecting to be blown away. I remember people having very, very similar reactions running up to Jedi Fallen Order. Because it was EA, and EA was the devil. And, you know, it's like, this game is going to be trash. You know, no one's going to like it. And it became a fan favorite pretty much overnight.
Yeah, I was just funny enough. I was just talking about that in VC before we got on the stream. It's like I'm getting major deja vu to 2019 when like the lead up to Fallen Order. It's like almost copy paste the same discourse. It's Ubisoft. Oh my god, bad corporation is making a Star Wars game. There's no way they can make a good Star Wars game, and it's like the game hasn't even come out yet. It's like, why are we already jumping to this level? Like, oh, Ubisoft bad. It's like, dude, we've been this before with Star Wars like creators and like Star Wars fans.
Yeah,
it's like just let the game come out before we start like judging it.
You know, like, I understand the sentiment because Ubisoft has had a rocky track record. I'm not going to say a bad track record. It's been a rocky one because some of the games they've put out, a lot of people have felt have been a little lackluster. Like the new Assassin's Creed games, some people have been lukewarm on. But I do think it is funny that, like, you know, people talk about the golden age of Assassin's Creed being Assassin's Creed 2 or Assassin's Creed 4. Yet Assassin's Creed is doing better than it's ever done with games like Origins, Odyssey, and now Valhalla. So it's one of those things of like, well, clearly they found a formula that works for a lot of people. And while the last open world Ubisoft game that I played was Ghost Recon Wildlands, and I enjoyed that game. I'm not going to say it's revolutionary or incredible or the greatest thing ever. I think it's fun, it's fine, and it's serviceable. I really did enjoy The Division a lot. that game was really fun for me. Didn't like the Division 2 so much, and then before that, like Far Cry 3, like the first like the kind of
Yeah.
the reboot of the Far Cry series until its formula now. I love Far Cry 3. Didn't really get into the other ones, but the open world thing doesn't always work for me. Um, I think it's cool when it's done right. I think Ubisoft has a very specific formula that they know works for them. Um, and yeah, like I look at Outlaws as a game that will most likely play through the story once and maybe never touch it again, and I'm fine with that.
Also, I'm tired of
But
that
I'm
being a bad
also
thing.
open to being proven wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like everything has to become your new forever game now. Um, there was a really good video I saw, and someone kind of talking about Star Wars Squadrons, um, and how they were like, this was a game where when everyone was complaining about live services, Star Wars Squadrons came out and said, "This is just a regular old multiplayer game. No live services. We're not going to do battle passes. We're not going to just do update after update after update. This is the game. Here you go. We're going to do a couple things here and there after the fact." They released the TIE Defender and B Wing without even having that announced. And it just didn't fit in with how people play games now. And that was a big part of why it failed. Not the only reason, but that was a big part of it. Was it wasn't a, it was a game that if it were live service, it would still be going. It would 100% still be going. Because right now, I think there's a peak of like 80 players on average on Star Wars Squadrons, which is sad.
Yeah.
Um, but with something like Outlaws, it's not multiplayer. I don't think it needs to be multiplayer. Um, it wants to tell a story. Will that story be good? I don't know. I hope so. Um, but it's a game that I'm 100% okay with. I'm going to beat it. And if that's it, that's all I get out of it, and I'm done with it, great. Like, you're 100% right. Why is that a bad thing? Why is it like that's how games, not, not gonna say that's how games used to be, but that's how a lot of games were. Like, um, there are so many games that I feel like a lot of people only played once, and of course, any example I'll give you, someone will come and say, "No, I actually beat that game 300 trillion times." Um, but like, I think games like BioShock were largely games that people played once and are very highly regarded. I think some of these more narrative driven games, like I know a lot of people like Half-Life 2,
Mhm.
or a game like Portal. Like Portal is an incredibly short game, and I guarantee you a large amount of people. I have to be so careful with how I say anything on the internet because someone will like be in the comments. Actually, the Steam charts say that this percentage of people replayed Portal this many times. Uh, that is a game that was designed for you to play it and beat it within a few hours and never touch it again. You don't need to touch it again. You certainly can if you want to. Um, I'm sure for a lot of people, Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2, I think for your average gamer that plays these types of games, they will play that story once, and
Mhm.
maybe spend some time doing the open worldy style things. Um, doing heists. I know there are people out there, believe it or not, that have never touched GTA Online. Like they just want that single player experience. And they went through the storyline of GTA 5. Or, I think what's funny about GTA 5 is I know people who
Mhm.
never even touched the storyline of GTA 5. They did like 6 missions and just blew up cars for 70 hours straight. Um,
Yeah. Like
and
same with Grand Theft Auto. I've seen both ends of the extreme as well. Oh, I used to be the story extreme.
and that's the thing. Yeah, the way Outlaws is presenting itself, like it can go a number of ways. We have a lot of details about the game, but even no matter how many details we get about a game, right? I don't care if it's Star Wars Outlaws or anything else. You won't know until you have the game in your hands. They can tell us all the features. They can show us all the demos. They can show us everything. Until we have that game in our hands, we will not know how good it is or how bad it is. Like, there is a chance this game will stink. Um, I think maybe one of the points we can talk about is they have put this game in front of people. They have
Mhm.
let people have hands-on um, experiences with this, and we have had a couple friends that were fortunate enough to be invited um, to play it, and the response has, I would say, largely been positive. I think many people have expressed concerns and
Yeah.
critiques, but they seem to be pretty small overall. Um,
From
and
what I've heard of both Josh, Mesa Windu, and Shako, because again, both respectively the two creators that I know who've played this, Josh was more because we talked about a little bit on the House of Dragons, like the very end of that episode. He seemed it was more like PC port bug issues, but from what Chaco released today, it seemed like they got a really super early beta build of the game. So it's like I can't even take those criticisms at face value because it's like they have a super early beta build of the game. It's like it's not the finished product. Also, he played on PC of all platforms, which
yeah,
Ubisoft has known to be buggy with PC ports.
I'm okay. So about that, I always take that with a grain of salt. I am not a game developer. I went to school for computer sciences with a focus on game development and had some experience doing it. I am not good at it. I dropped out of college. Let's be very clear on that. I'm not a game developer. Um, I do know from that experience and the experience of testing games early, like through private um, builds, where they use that same phrasing. Oh, this is like 8 builds um, prior to release. I remember specifically, I was invited to test Battlefield 2142, which is the best Battlefield of all time. Uh, and they used not the exact same language, but very similar language of like, this is a very pre release build. Um, and you will see things in the game. You will see certain aspects that will be placeholders. You will see design changes from this to the final build. And um, I can tell you, like, there were some things like certain, um, like when you go to your class selection, like it was like very placeholdery, like assault class, sniper class, engineer class. And then there was also little things like there was small details on the guns that ended up changing in the final build, but largely, even though it was this many versions before the full version, it was incredibly close to the full version.
Yeah.
Um, and so the I'm not going to say it makes me nervous. The fact that they are showing a build to people that has these bugs, blah, 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 it leads me to believe some of these bugs will be present in the full release. Because while they say it's 8 builds before, we're talking it could be build 0.9000002.
Yeah. It could be
And
built from
then
like
they're going to,
May, for all we know.
and there's going to be certain things you're just not going to have time to fix by with the build they showed. Yeah, you're right, it could be from a month ago, it could be from 8 months ago, we don't know. Typically, from my experience, when I've gotten pre-release access to test environments, it's very close. When they are sending that stuff out to people who don't work for the company, they're very close. So I think a lot of people have been complaining about things like the explosion effects or the way certain like visual or animation styles have been represented. Um, and my thing is, I'm not going to hold my breath and hope that the explosions look better. That may very well be the final explosion effect. I also don't care at
Same.
all about that explosion effect. That is that's something I don't care about. And you know, from what I have seen in that game so far, I think it looks fine. I don't think it's jaw-dropping. I don't think it looks as good as Hellblade 2. I don't think it even looks as good as Red Dead 2. I don't care. I really don't care. Um, that's
Same.
not
It's
something
like
I have a lot of. Like, I like when games look good. I think it's cool. I think when I have those like, "Whoa, that's really pretty. That's awesome." I don't need every game I play to look like that. Even if it's a game that's trying to look realistic, if it falls short in certain areas, I don't care. I genuinely don't care. Those explosions, do they do the right amount of damage to the enemy? Do they sound cool, you know? There's other things that can happen in a game that masks that. But hey, for all we know, maybe they have a way better explosion animation ready to go now, and that's awesome. But I don't care. Some of these, I'll say based on what I've seen, I think some of the animations do look a little stiff, but that's also one of those things. Bro, I play the old Resident Evil games to this day. Like, I don't care about stiff animations. That is part of gaming for me. Um, the presentation, I think, is still important. I think a game should, look good. It should be presentable.
mhm,
But if the game is fun to play, if the faction stuff seems really interesting, and I'm I'm into what they're trying to do, and I hope they pull it off. That is the thing that I want more, is I am hopeful that Ubisoft will pull this off. Um, I'll be sad if they don't, but I'm not gonna be in tears if they don't pull it off, if they don't stick the landing. It's fine.
yeah. To me, it's like again, this just looks like a Ubisoft game, like the same animation quality I've seen in Assassin's Creed games, and it's like I'm not expecting this to be a Rockstar level game or like a Sony Interactive exclusive game from like Sucker Punch or Insomniac. I'm not expecting that level of budget and quality. I'm expecting this to be Assassin's Creed quality, Division, Far Cry. It's like that. It's like the expectations for me have been kind of set for in stone. It's like obviously I think the game's gonna be good, but like I can't really make observations on stiff animations or explosions. Like I said, till I have the game in my hand, those don't matter to me because the
Yeah.
gameplay, like if I'm in love with the gameplay, I don't care. The game feels fun to play. Cool. Am I gonna go blow up the Empire and cause chaos? Yeah, that's fun. I don't care if the story good. Yeah, I don't care. It's like I can overlook those type of things.
The, yeah, the thing about, like, visuals in video games is as long as the gameplay is fun, no one really cares about the visuals, even if they look bad or whatever. Um, it's just one of those things, like, when you're actually playing the game, like, a bad explosion animation or a bad reload animation, um, once you've seen it and you're like, "Oh, that looks like crap," but if the game is fun to play, you will never really notice that animation ever again. And look, I'm not saying that's how it's gonna be. Like I said, I'm hopeful that's how it's gonna be.
Mhm.
Um, I do, call me a shill. I do believe Ubisoft is more than capable of putting out good games. I saw a video that was really good. That was like a video that was like dogging on Ubisoft, and like Ubisoft hasn't been able to make a good game in years. And like the last good game they made was Far Cry 3 and some other game. And then they're like, "Oh, and the new Prince of Persia game was actually also really good." I'm like, "Bro, that game is 3 months old. Like, they have proven to you they are capable of making games as of 3 months ago." Um, and it's just so funny for me because again, I am not the I most of the games I play in my day to day are not Ubisoft games. Um, I have not played Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I have no interest in playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I have not played Far Cry 5, 6, or Primal. No interest. Um, I have no interest in playing Ghost Recon Breakpoint. As much as I liked Wildlands, I don't really care about that. I liked Rainbow Six Siege. I gave up on it because that game got way too complicated. But I like that. We played X Defiant, and that was
Yeah.
a super fun game. I have my faith in Ubisoft making a good game is not an issue. Like that, there's zero concern of that for me. They have proven that they can make both good and bad video games. The same with every developer in the history of video games. Um, I think some of the monetization stuff you can be a little skeptical of, but I think a lot of that also comes down to if you don't want to buy the Ultimate Edition, don't buy the Ultimate Edition. Just buy the base game.
Also, I'm not defending the practice, but like so many studios have been doing that lately. Like EA's been doing a lot of that lately with their sports games. Mortal Kombat 1 did that with their whole like $100 bundle where it's like here's the season pass and you get it 3 days early. Like this isn't new gaming practices. This has been a thing for like the last 2 and 3 years. It's like you're just getting mad because it's a Star Wars game that's doing it. It's like you didn't say anything when it was any other game studio, so why is it a big deal now? It's like this has been set in stone for months.
I think you're right. I think part of it is it's a Star Wars game, so it has a built-in audience, and it has a built-in audience that is very picky. So it's going to catch flack for that regardless. Um, I have been playing games for a very long time, and I play games across the board. I play big AAA games, I play live service games, I play small AA games, I play indie games, I play itch.io games. If I see a game that is like one dude threw together a Death Star trench run tech demo in VR, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, like I'm cool with that. I tried to show Luke. This guy made a Death Troopers side, fan game where it was like you are a stormtrooper just shooting Death Troopers, like zombified Death Troopers, and
That's
it's like a
awesome.
horde mode. And like, dude, I played it, and it is very simple. It is just that. It is survive as long as you can, and I had a blast with that. And I love playing stuff like that. So I'm not like I have to play AAA games. Like I said, I'll play it all, and I'm I have never have I ever played a game and been like, I don't like this game very much. It would solve that for me if I would have just bought the Ultimate Edition. That has
Mhm.
never happened to me. Like, I've never felt that a game was so hindered on its special edition package that the game was just so close to being good. If only I had the super cool fire horse mount skin, that
Mhm.
the game would have been incredible to me. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not how it works.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like
and
going into a
and I
restaurant and they're like, "Hey, you want more of this food?" "Yeah, I want more of this food. It's good." It's like that's what it is. It's not like you're not gonna really be like, "Man, this food is terrible. I just need a little bit more." Like, no one does that. Like, no one
Yeah,
goes into a restaurant and
it's
expects
kind of
that.
like it's it's like, yeah, man, this food was so bad. If only I just had paid, 50 cents extra for guac, it would have changed the entire meal. It's like that's not how it works. The food was bad. Deal with it. Uh, and like, look, if Outlaws is bad, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, "Ugh, you know, it was bad, but after I finally forked over the extra $30 to get the Jabba the Hutt mission or the Nyx custom rainbow skin, whatever it is, oh, my mind has changed. It's a good game. Like that's not going to happen. And the fact that people are causing a stink over it is just insane. Um,
Well, it's
uh,
not even just
Again,
that that's blowing my
you
mind.
don't like this. You don't like what they're doing. I think that's totally fine. And if you don't want to support it, it's very easy. Don't support it.
or if you want to play the game, I know it's not a console thing, but you can pay for like Ubisoft Connect for like 2 months and then just get the game for $30, and it's the gold
Yeah.
edition.
Well, I think a lot of people have like drawn attention to that of being like this is a really cheap way to get people to sign up for Ubisoft Plus Ultimate Connect, whatever. Um, and I'm like, I do agree with that. Of like, you don't need to do that. I think Microsoft did the same thing with like Sea of Thieves and Starfield. Of like, here's if you just pay for Game Pass, you get this really awesome game. I know people, I do a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I know
Yeah.
people that they straight up only use Game Pass to play Flight Simulator. And I'm like, you've at this point you've spent more money on Game Pass than the actual game. And they're like, yeah, whatever. um, but no, I think that Ubisoft is interesting because it's like I guess it's one of those things of like, I think it's people on the internet complaining to complain, and I'm like, are you unaware of how this works? Like Ubisoft is a company, unlike Activision, unlike Nintendo, that is
Mm.
not afraid to discount its games. Like within 45 days, this game will be down to $55
Oh,
on a
easily.
flash sale. Like like around the holidays, there will be a 20% off sale on Star Wars Outlaws. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, I would not be
so
surprised either because it's like it's a single player game that's probably not going to have that much content outside of launch. Maybe a couple DLC missions here or there. Maybe new cosmetics.
they're saying they want to do battle passes and stuff like that. We'll see. Again, I don't need it. I have never purchased a battle pass in my entire life. Um, and I'm still enjoying video games. Maybe that's the key is if you stop buying battle passes, you start enjoying video games more. Um,
Damn, I guess I got to cancel my Fortnite battle pass.
Fortnite battle pass.
uh,
Yeah, like I think I think the game looks good. I think the game looks fun. I think this is a game that similar to GTA, as long as the game controls well, feels well, this is a game where you will create your own fun in a lot of
yeah.
ways. Um, where your your sandbox experience, if it has a good enough sandbox experience, you can kind of control how much fun you have. And I think something like Tears of the Kingdom is a great example of that. Is that yes, there is a really good game there, but so many people, because that game is so creative and so open, that so many people were able to create unique experiences with that game entirely.
Like I saw videos of like on TikTok again. I need to play Tears of the Kingdom actually, but like of like making like guns in Tears of the Kingdom and just like blowing up goblins, and you're just like, how the hell did you do this instead like the
the
building system in this game?
the Korok genocide, 100%. How many Koroks can we like send into the stratosphere? The game. Um, yeah, no, it's a great game, and I think that's what is so special about something like Grand Theft Auto is that sandbox is so good um, that people can just make their own fun entirely.
Like I'm gonna imagine like half the people that are gonna play this game that are only do it for the open world are just gonna cause chaos at the Empire and just get like 5 stars and just have Death Troopers just chasing them down across the map because they
Sure,
already confirmed that's
sure.
a feature is that if you get 5 stars they'll send Death Troopers after you.
Yeah, the one thing that I am seeing um, is this what like people's what if scenarios um, letting that affect their experience. That makes
Yeah,
sense. Like I've already seen people saying like because when they said like yeah when you get to 5 stars or the equivalent of 5 stars, right, the Death Troopers come down and hunt you, and they're like, oh yeah, but what if on 6 stars Darth Vader came after you? And I'm like, sure, that would be cool, ha ha ha. That's not the game. That's not what they wanted. That's not how it is. And this is, I think, a huge issue in media right now is we have so many people that are judging media based on what they wanted it to be versus what it is. Um, I distinctly remember this, and I feel like it's ingrained in my brain, is that I play a lot of Elite Dangerous,
Mhm.
and a couple of years ago, they released their new expansion that lets you kind of walk around on the planets and in the space stations. And it wasn't super well received for a number of reasons. I think it was fine, um, but like it had its issues.
Mhm.
Um, the core game was still there. The core game was still a blast. But there was a specific Reddit post I remember seeing where someone described this really awesome situation of like, imagine you go to like a derelict space station that's been abandoned, and like you find an orphan, and you have to question where she's from, and then talk to
Mhm.
people and all this stuff, and like basically it sounded like a really awesome like Mass Effect side quest. And I was like, that sounds really cool, man.
Mhm.
Who said you were getting that? Uh, like that was not even close to what was being described or shown with this expansion, and the person was upset that we weren't getting these like highly cinematic, highly story driven experiences when that's never been what that game has been about, and that's just not the scale that they were trying to approach. And this guy was like convinced that the expansion was bad because his made up expectation wasn't met.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I'm seeing it a lot with Outlaws, where it's like you're making this expectation up, and you're not being told it's happening, and then you're upset. Then the thing that you had in your mind didn't happen.
Yeah, and it's like with me with Outlaws, the thing that I'm excited about is like we've had so many games about like the Jedi, force sensitivity, lightsaber combat. It's like finally we're getting a game about the smugglers and like the underworld and like the grittiness of Star Wars, like and that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, let's go explore that because we haven't seen that much in Star Wars media for gaming, like exploring that side of Star Wars and like what goes on with the shady dealings of the underworld. It's like finally we're getting something that's not centered around the Jedi Order, and we want to just like you said, like the whole like people's expectations not what they want from the game. It's like, why would you want to drag Vader into this type of story? Like, no, it's like that's not what the game is trying to do.
There is a certain part of this fandom, and I'm not trying to call it out, and I'm not trying to say they're wrong, but that to them is the most appealing part of Star Wars, and they are locked into that. Um, I've been going live a lot with a bunch of creators, Condi
Mhm.
Savage, The Wolf of Loth Street, and the 716th Legion. So I highly recommend everyone go kind of follow those guys because they're really doing a lot of interesting things on live and opening discussions up. And I've been able to talk to really cool people that have really interesting views, but I've also seen kind of a part of the fandom that like I guess we always knew was there, but having that concrete confirmation of like there's a part of this fandom where power scaling is really important to them. And they very much, if they only got Anakin and Darth Vader over and over again, they would be happy. Um, and that is 100% not me. I am 100% in the camp of Kay Vess
Mhm.
seems like a way cooler character than Cal Kestis. Cal Kestis is great. I love Cal,
Yeah.
but I have always related more to the Jyn Ursos, the Wedge Antilles, the Cassian Andors, the Mon Mothmas of the world, versus all the Jedi. I love the Jedi. Jedi are awesome. I love Force lore. I love
Mhm.
like kind of the way you can get into the theology of the Force. I think that's great. But at the end of the day, as an original trilogy fan, the Rebellion versus the Empire is my Star Wars. And so Outlaws is the perfect setting for me. And I do want this game to be really good because it's like I could see myself dumping tons of hours into this game, especially if it's a game that they're going to continue to support and maybe add new planets and let us go to different locations and stuff like that. Like that sounds awesome. Will it happen? I don't know. But this game for me, it seems like they're really trying to. cater towards someone like me. My perfect game was already released. It was Squadrons. Uh, but yeah, I'm just like there is that fandom. There's that part of the fandom that like Star Wars is Darth Vader and Anakin. Star Wars is Jedi versus Sith, and it is lightsabers, and
Yeah,
they don't care about the other stuff.
because I remember seeing like some TikTok videos of people like arguing about this of like, oh, this isn't a Star Wars game because there isn't a lightsaber, and it's like, what? Like, I still will never understand like I can get like at a surface level like why people are the way they are with fandoms when it comes to that, but like to me it's like to me again I wouldn't go as in depth as you are where it's like Star Wars is like X-wing the normal people, but it's like to me like I said the thing I'm excited about is like the smugglerness of the underworld and that kind of stuff because it's like even the developer said like the main inspiration for this game was Solo, a Star Wars story, and like how the underworld like was in control during the Empire's reign, and like I love how it's like set between 5 and 6 because that's exactly where the underworld would be in the most power is when the Empire is starting to falter before the rebellion takes over. So it's like that's like the perfect era to
Yeah,
set this game in.
yeah, 100%. And I think it's super interesting, but yeah, because I've seen the same things. I've seen the same comments of like, no lightsaber, pass. And I'm like, to me, that's crazy. But I get it. Like, I get that that's what a lot of people want out of Star Wars. And I feel like it was either on Podwans or maybe it was on Dyad where it was like someone said something to the effect of like every single kid growing up that watched Star Wars made lightsaber sounds.
Mhm.
They got any type of cylindrical object and they immediately pretended it was a lightsaber. And I'm like, you're 100% correct. We've all done it. I've done it. You've done it. Everyone in
Mhm.
the chat has done it. Like you can't ignore that, and that's why I do think games like Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order were so popular because number one, they're great video games,
Yeah.
and they are fun lightsaber whooshy whooshy games.
And like again, it's like I said, like going back to like the whole thing of like Outlaws is like again, because like Chase, you're more like up to date and like older than me, and like with like have played Star Wars games from like the SNES all the way to now. Like when was the last time we got like a non Jedi Star Wars game where it's like you can like
Oh, I'm
ignore
sorry,
the
you're
Force
breaking up a little
entirely?
bit there. What was that?
Like when was the last time we got like a non Jedi Force sensitive type of story in a Star Wars game? Because like to me, it's I haven't seen it in my life as a gamer playing Star Wars games.
You had Squadrons.
Yeah.
That was non-force sensitive, but it was a flight simulator. You had Battlefront 2's campaign. Um, that was about Iden Versio. Um, she was not forced. Well, yeah,
Because he had Luke
so
in
that
there
was like
and
a
that kind of
regular
stuff, and
person
there
game.
was some Jedi elements in there still.
Oh, as far as them not showing up, that's
Yeah.
a little trickier. They yeah, Star Wars that recently got a re-release,
Mhm.
um, or a remaster, or whatever you want to call it. There was because like Jedi Academy and Outcast were like definitely Jedi games. You had Force Unleashed, which was a very much Jedi. Um, the original Battlefront, and I guess even the new first Battlefront, was not
Yeah.
lightsaber focused. Um, Shadows of the Empire, mm, no Jedi in Shadows of the Empire. There, Luke shows up in one of the
Yeah.
cinematics, but he's not like never control him. Um, Star Wars Episode One Racer, no Jedi except for Anakin is a Force sensitive, but you don't get to use the Force as Anakin. Um, and there's the X-wing series. I'm sorry, the Rogue Squadron series. Yeah, like there have been these games where you are not a Jedi. Dark Forces is a you later on in the series you get a lightsaber, but it's a Doom clone, so it's a first
Yeah.
person shooter. Republic Commando, great game, first person shooter. Um, no Jedi.
Yeah. Again, I
So
wanted to bring that
it's
up
not.
because it's like
It's
it's
one
been
of
a
those
while.
things. I would say it hasn't because of Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
The story mode being about Iden Versio. Um, yeah, I did see someone make a video of like hot Star Wars take, and it was like Battlefront is always better when there's no Jedi because the Jedi are always a little wonky and they break the balance of the game. And I just want to be a regular soldier. And I'm like, I 100% agree. I hate the hero stuff in
Yeah.
Battlefront. Um,
Because like you're just wrecking
but yeah,
like Hallis, and then like a Jedi shows up, and you're just like, oh great, can't take that on.
yeah. I think maybe to your point, the last full on narrative game we got where you were not a Jedi, you have no Force abilities, and at no point in that game can you do that. It's not like an X-Wing game. Shadows of the Empire from the Nintendo 64.
Damn, it's been that long. Because I thought you were going like Republic
For a
Commandos.
for a for a narrative game, because there are tons of games we've gotten. Like if you look at Star Wars Demolition, if you look at, like I said, like other games like vehicle-based games, um, all that. Yeah, like you can definitely make a case. Galaxies, you could become a Jedi. Old Republic, you can obviously become a Jedi. The KOTOR games, you can become a Jedi, or you do become a Jedi. Force Unleashed. I would say Star Wars Connect, but there is the
Ah,
lightsaber game in Star
yes,
Wars Connect,
peak gaming right there.
the greatest Star Wars video game. I'm really trying to, yeah. Bounty Hunter is actually Bounty Hunter would be the narrative game, most recent narrative game where you do not get to control a Jedi.
Is that the Jango Fett one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So PlayStation 2, because the only on the Xbox 360 you had Force Unleashed.
That was basically it for the 360 PS3
Is that
generation.
it?
Yeah, Connect, Star Wars Connect, Force Unleashed.
It's Star Wars Connect. Uh, yeah, because KOTOR was
And,
Xbox,
and then you had
SWOTOR
some
was
like
PC only.
Clone Wars tie-in games. I don't really count that as like a full-fledged AAA Star Wars
R
game. So it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
because there
360
was there
PS3
was
you didn't get
Lego
much.
games and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you get the complete saga on 360, and the PS2 had like original trilogy prequels, and then you had Clone Wars Lego,
Yeah,
but
so those
like
were like
for the most part,
retellings.
yeah, we didn't really get much on
Yeah,
360
no,
PS3, and
I
then
think
PS4
Bounty
was the
Hunter.
Battlefronts and
Yeah,
Jedi
I
games.
think Bounty Hunter is the last narrative. Yeah, because Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast were both like Xbox PS2 era. Um, yeah, Bounty Hunter's probably the Bounty Hunter, and then Shadows of the Empire would be the last two. Um, and yeah, like I think it's more than time for us to get a game like this. And like I said, I want it to be good. I want us to have a game that we can like look back on and be like, oh, I should play Outlaws again.
Hmm.
Like that's what I want more than anything. Is I like games when I think a game is really good when I get the itch to play it years later. Of like, oh, I should really, even if it's not to beat it again, just to play like the first couple, missions or levels or whatever the game like pertains to. Like, oh, I just want to do that for those first two missions of Rogue Squadron again, or oh, I just want to do the Boon to Eve Classic in Star Wars Racer again. Like that is a good game where you get the itch to play it down the road,
Hmm.
um, even if it's not in its in the entire in its entirety. Um, and I hope we get that. Maybe we won't. I'm not going to throw a temper tantrum on the internet if we don't. I'll be like, yeah, it's unfortunate that it was bland or it felt bad or the story felt really weird. Um, yeah, like I'll be sad, I'll be upset, but I'll mostly keep it to myself. Maybe post one video. Like I've been vocal because I posted when Survivor came out. I
Mhm.
posted that I did not like the story of Survivor. I didn't like a lot of the gameplay choices in Survivor. I still think it's a good video game, but I'm like I'm not crazy about some of the decisions with this game.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the craziest thing because like maybe the other aspect we can talk about is just the backlash this game has been getting and the backlash that creators have been getting for basically saying, "Yeah, I had a good time with the preview."
I
And
don't get
you're
that
a
at
paying
all.
Ubisoft shill.
I like to me, it blows my mind that this, and then I guess as we're getting into the title of the video, this is what blows my mind about this whole discourse from YouTube creators. Game developers have sent early beta copies to creators to promote their games for how many years now? This isn't new practices. Like, especially with again, I know it's not a live service game. Like live services games, like Epic has given out their codes and like given early access to stuff before. So it's like, why are we flipping our shit at Ubisoft for pushing the game marketing wise through creators? Because guess what, we are in the social mediaification era of gaming. If you want like your game to be popular, you give your game to like creators in that space that would push the game. So it's like, of course Ubisoft are taking advantage of that. And guess what, most of the people that we talk to that have played the early like 4 hours of the game that they did aren't like Ubisoft shills. They all have issues with the game and they're vocalizing their issues with the game, but they're not making it their entire personality and like going on the internet and being like, Star Wars Outlaws is the worst thing I've played in 2024. They're just like, yeah, Star Wars Outlaws is a good game, but it has a lot of issues. So it's like I'm getting annoyed at this
Yeah, like
discourse.
I, I hate the out of 10, like, 0, what do you rate the game out of 10? I can't stand that
Mhm.
personally. But if we were to use it, I think a lot of people are kind of leaning towards like, yeah, it feels like a 7 or 8 out of 10 game. And people are like, it's not a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. Ubisoft. And I'm like, why? Like, I think that people don't understand that, like, one of the things that makes masterpieces is we don't get them all the time. Is
Mhm.
that you don't get a Godfather every single year. You don't get a Red Dead or Breath of the Wild every single year. That's I don't want to say that's the point, but like when something outshines everything, right? When you look
Yeah.
at like something like Baldur's Gate 3 and like the effect that had on a lot of people, and the thing that frustrated me about that game was the even the positive discourse about it of like this is going to set a new standard for video games, and I'm like, I hope it doesn't. I
Same.
really hope it doesn't. I
Like it
think
had a
people should just be able to make video games.
yeah, like
I don't
bullet
think everything needs to be this good.
yeah. Because the thing that made about Baldur's
Like,
Gate
and
3
that's not look.
is like, sorry, not that interrupt what you're saying. Again, bad latency.
No, go ahead.
It was like the death grip it had on its audience, like to the point where it's like again, I'm happy that people love the game. Like don't get me wrong, like, there's a lot of people that I know that
Oh,
love Baldur's Gate
totally,
3 like full heartedly
totally.
and love the story and played it like through like 8 different times with all the different outcomes to see what would happen. And it's like I'm happy for those people, but it's like it dominated like the space for like 3 straight months. Where if you played any other game during those 3 months that was not titled Baldur's Gate 3, you were immediately like shot down and like shunned for talking about anything else because Asterion was so cute
Yeah,
and fuckable in the game. I don't know.
yeah. It's one of those things that I think that that game in particular, and games like Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is not the first game to be incredible. Um, it's just one of those things like that narrative of like everything has to be like this now. And I'm like, if everything is like this, that game stops being so special.
Mhm.
Um, and if if Star Wars Outlaws is a masterpiece, 10 out of 10, it's the greatest Star Wars game ever made. Awesome. Be happy about it. But if it's not,
Mhm.
it's also okay. Like there are tons of like Shadows of the Empire is a well-regarded game. It is considered a classic video game. It's not a good video game. It is not a 10 out of 10 video game. It was not a 10 out of 10 video game for its time. It was like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for most people. Um, and it did some really interesting things. It did some really cool things. It didn't control super well, even for its time. Like it's one of those things. Like it was a third person platforming shooter in an age where Mario 64 already existed, when Ocarina of Time
Mm.
already existed. It is like it was not those games, but it was still fun. It was still awesome. Like the like Star Wars Episode One Racer,
Mhm.
that game has like a total of 6 tracks that it just shortens or extends in different ways. Like, and it goes on forever. And like the the balance of the racers was not good. There were clearly better racers than others. It's not a perfect game. People still love that game. I love that game. It's incredible. It is not a 10 out of 10 game. A game doesn't need to be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece to be memorable, to be a classic. Um, and it's one of those things like when you look at, again, you look at something like, let's say Baldur's Gate is a 10 out of 10 game.
Mhm.
And, if we look back, we get like a Red Dead Redemption in there, or we get a Breath of the Wild in there. And these games are several years apart from each other. And it's like, it's important that like these games are spaced out, because I think it gives other people room to breathe, to put out these games that are not masterpieces, but they're still good. They're still fun. They try new things, or they remix old things, and how they do it. And it's okay if a game has a aspect of it that you don't like, or it's like I love the game except for this part of it, or there was a section in the game like Metro 2033 is like an incredible example of a
Mhm.
game that is like so close to being a masterpiece, except for this one section in the game that is so absurdly bad that like it genuinely drags the rest of the game down with it, but it's still like the game is remembered as being a really good game. It's not remembered as one of the greatest games of all time because of that section, but it's not like that one section that really sucks doesn't mean the whole we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Um, like just because there's a part of it you don't like doesn't mean we can't look at the rest of it and enjoy it. And I think there's going to be a lot of that with Outlaws. It seems like there are going to be aspects of this game that aren't great.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna say, "Oh, that's fine, don't worry about it." It's like, it sucks, I wish they would make games where we didn't have to worry about that, but I understand that that's a huge ask. It's not just, "Oh, I forgot to turn the fun switch on. My bad. Let me roll that patch out, the patch that makes the game fun." Like, it doesn't work like that, and it's like, I think there's a lot to work with in games like this, and there's lots to love, and landscape of games and what people consider to be good versus what people consider to be bad is so wild. It's so hard to like determine. Like, did you play the last the last Remnant? Is that what that game
No.
is called? That game is not good,
Okay.
and people love it. It is. I don't know if Haley said it, but or someone else said it, but someone said this is literally like I know this game wasn't made by AI, but I'm pretty sure it feels like the game was made by AI. It is so generic. There's nothing like obscenely wrong with the game, but it is. I think I was talking to Brandon about it, and I was like, you know, the phrase that people use when something is just like okay, when it's like it is one of the games of all time. The Last Remnant is one of the games of all time. Um,
And like, there's nothing wrong
and
with games
people
being
love.
aggressively average.
Yes, I agree, but like this, The Last Remnant is aggressively average, and because it's one of those things of like it doesn't really do anything new, and it's one of those things like Destiny and Warframe, its biggest inspirations are free.
Yeah.
Like you could just play a better video game. Um, and it's just one of those things like people love that game. Like it has a very dedicated fan base. Like there's like I feel like I haven't been able to log on to TikTok and scroll through lives and not see someone playing that game. And it's not like it's a
Mhm.
brand new game at this point. It's a month or two old. So like the freshman year or freshman month of it is over and people are still playing it and people still love it. And I'm just like, this is wild. This is crazy. Um, it's yeah, it's one of those things. I'm just like, I am blown away because there's games out there. Like I understand that Starfield has problems.
Yeah.
I do not understand why people hate that game so much. Like I'm beginning to get more and more like recommended videos of like Starfield is not the greatest thing in the world, but it's weird how everyone hates it so much. Um, and it's so strange. Like I almost feel like we're in a lottery of what the internet decides is good or bad.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting tired of in gaming. It's like this mass groupthink logic of oh, Outlaws is hated by all these creators. You must fucking just like the game too. You must just like join in and like go herd mode and just immediately recite everything that they're saying because Ubisoft bad, their practice bad, so game equal bad. When it's like if I enjoyed the game and I can feel the passion from the developers and I enjoyed the story, who the fuck cares what X creator says and why they think the game is bad? I enjoyed the game for what it was. I like
There's
the game. It's like I'm gonna
social
just like the game.
yeah, social media is a huge aspect of it. And I I find it frustrating because the you know how people like talk about like, oh, this thing had so much potential. Like
Yeah.
so and so Star Wars project had so much potential, Marvel had so much potential, this game had so much potential. Social media had so much potential to be a force for good. Like there is something to be said, right? Of hey, a company like IGN or Game Informer. Oh, Game Informer's shutting down, by the way. I don't know if you knew about that.
I heard about that. Yeah, there's a whole like controversy around it because they
Yeah,
just
Game
closed the site
Informer.
without anybody telling anybody, and then just like a bunch of
Yeah,
like
they're just
old
done.
forum posts have been
Yeah,
lost.
but yeah, like IGN, Polygon, Kotaku, GameSpot. I don't know, is GameSpot still around? Anyways, you know the
Yeah.
big video game media outlets. Like I understand this sentiment of like, this person gets paid to play video games for a living and write a journalistic review. There is a there is a bias, not so much in they got paid by Ubisoft to tell you that the game was good, but more of a my job depends on writing this article in a certain way,
Hmm.
even if it's a bad review. Like it's like this is coming from someone who does it as a living. This person didn't pay for the game, they have no stakes in the game, and I'm like, I 100% understand. Like I would rather listen to regular people who just like to play video games and they purchase the game with their own money and they tell me how they feel on YouTube or Twitch or whatever platform they're on. And I love that. I love that like communal aspect of discourse in games. But the fact that at the very, very extreme of it, there's people who are just literally making money off of saying that everything in the world sucks.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to make money off of that. And so it's disingenuous. It's way more disingenuous than any person who works at IGN will ever be. And that's what I think is really frustrating for me, is that these YouTube, TikTok, Instagram rage farmers are
Mhm.
so much more disingenuous than any of the major publications. Um, like I'm sorry, like you will never convince me that a game like Starfield is the worst game of all time. I have played plenty of terrible video games. Starfield does not come close. If you are on the internet saying that, you are lying. You are disingenuous. You are a shill, but for negativity.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like I can totally understand. It's like your least favorite Bethesda game or your least favorite whatever, and it doesn't have to be that game. It could be any game. Like there's people on the internet saying that Elden Ring is the worst game of all time. That's not. I don't like Souls games. I don't. I don't like Elden Ring that much. It's not the worst game of all time. It's not even the worst FromSoft game of all time. That's Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
But it's like the hyperbolic nature of YouTube, where it's like I said, it's like I said, going back to the group think, psychology of like, oh my god, AAA studio bad, Ubisoft bad, Outlaws is bad. Oh my god, let's very much hone in on this one specific thing they're doing, even though everyone else is doing it. So it's the thing of the week. I'm gonna go on my live stream and be like, oh my god, Outlaws is gonna be the worst thing ever made. So you better not enjoy
but
the
like,
game. And then
but the
they
thing
get into a
is
conflict of interest because they actually like the game, but I have to play up the fact that I don't like it because I already had this preconceived notion and I can't just own up that I didn't like the game before. So I'm gonna just go hardcore into it and just fucking make up bullshit. Sorry, ran over.
but I mean, it comes down to this: is that especially on a platform like YouTube, the way that YouTube is structured is you have to bring people in to your video, and you have to keep them engaged. And I think what people fail, not I don't want to say people fail to realize, but like what people overlook, and I think people are being more cognizant of it, is what's more interesting. Here's why I didn't like the reputation system of Star Wars Outlaws? Or did Ubisoft just release the worst Star Wars game ever made? Like from an outside perspective, from like an uneducated or misinformed person, I'm going to click on,
Yeah.
whoa, did Ubisoft make the worst Star Wars game of all time? I want to know if that's true. And then kind of like what you said is like it becomes this hive mind mentality. It becomes this like we have all these there was discourse surrounding the pricing and that put a sour taste in people's mouths, and little little things have come out and just shown like, hey, like maybe there are things about this game that are not perfect, and I do not expect this game to be perfect, but people are running with that narrative saying that it is terrible and you cannot believe other eyes. And if you say anything else, like there was the guy that had to take his video down because he said I had a really good time with the Ubisoft or the Outlaws demo, and like he was just trying to be positive, and I believe he even said like there was some things that he just didn't like,
Mm-hmm.
and he had to take it down because he was getting harassed. You know, and I'd have to look it up, but like the shill argument, the how much are you getting paid argument, um, is so is the
Stupid.
least intelligent take you can have.
Also,
There,
JJ was
do
talking
you
about it last
know
week
of
on
Army
House.
of Two?
No, well, what is the Army 2?
Um, the Army of Two was one of the last games to get in trouble for that, and it wasn't exactly that. Um, Army of Two is a not good, very generic, very bland third-person cover shooter. It is a co-op Gears of War wannabe. Every combat encounter takes place in a factory that only makes waist-high walls.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's a bad game, and it got a sequel that was also bad.
Okay.
Was it that one? It was that one, and then I think there was another one. I might be confusing this. I am 100% confusing this. Okay, because I was like, man, that does seem wrong. Army of Two, very bad game, exactly what I just described, but wasn't the example of what happened. Kane and Lynch 2
Mhm.
is the game. Was one of the last games that got in trouble for this. And I'm talking high profile game because
Yeah.
other games do this. They do pay people, but it's usually smaller developers. It's people who don't know the legal system and they're trying to promote their games and they're trying to make a buck. When it comes to studios like Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, WB, Take-Two, Square Enix, all of them, they don't break the law when it comes to this stuff. It
Yeah.
is against the law to not say you're getting paid. And the thing is, to avoid that, to avoid ever doing that, you know what they don't do? They don't pay people that do not work for them.
Yep.
If you do not work for Ubisoft, you don't get paid. They will cover flights and hotels sometimes. They will certainly send out free things. They will do. They'll send out video game codes. They'll
But
often
that's like
send
to
out
the top.
promotional
That's like to the top
materials that
1% creators out there. It's like people like I hate them. Like the common misconception that like, oh,
is
Disney or
that
Ubisoft is paying
that
for
one
this.
percent is getting
It's
that window is getting bigger because more people are in the content creation space. But you're right; it's a very small amount of content creators that actually get that. I am not the person that they're sending stuff to. But
Mhm.
Kane and Lynch is another not good third person cover shooter game. They it is like a very notorious story where and it really wasn't it was their fault, but it was also the media company GameSpot's fault
Yeah.
is they paid GameSpot for advertising space on their website. And this was, keep in mind, this was Xbox 360 days. So the way
Okay.
websites were laid out was a little different. They basically paid for side and top banners to say Kane and Lynch available now, something like that.
Mhm.
One of their editors, Jeff Gersman, who's been in the industry forever, still in the industry, kind of still in the industry, wrote a review
Yeah.
saying this game sucks butt. And you would be watching this review or reading this review. I can't remember if he did a video review on it. I think it was a written review. You'd be reading the review and it was like, this is one of the worst games I've ever played. I hate
Yeah.
this game. I don't like it. It's buggy. It's boring. It's uninspired. We didn't need a sequel to the first one. Nothing about this game is redeemable. Meanwhile, the whole website is flashing by this game now. Is kind of why you don't see it as often. Now, if it doesn't happen, you don't see it as often. That's why you see pre-roll ads from Google. You don't see paid promotion on IGN. If I do IGN.com.
But
Yeah,
also
and it's
like
just kind of the way that
yeah.
what websites are designed now is you can't really do that. But anyways, he okay, there is a top roll ad, but it is for Safari on IGN right now. And it is algorithm based. They are not being paid directly from Apple to roll that. Anyways, GameSpot fired Jeff Gersman because they said you need to change your review. Like you need to be more positive about the review. And he said, no way in hell am I writing a review that is going to be and I don't believe that they said you have to say it's a good game. It's like, you can't be so negative about it. And he says, it's a bad game. I don't like it. If you don't want it, get someone else to write the review, and I won't be writing reviews for you anymore if this is how you're going to. And he's like, in a style, he's not like some newbie. He's been writing reviews since the Super
Yeah.
Nintendo. And he was like, this is ridiculous. How dare you ask me that? And then he was like, I quit. And he was escorted out of the building by the security, and a bunch of people left with him.
That's
When
insane.
this stuff happens, and this was one of the last times that this happened in the industry, because what happened is he and a bunch of the people that left ended up forming Giant Bomb.
Okay. Oh yeah, I heard of them. Yeah.
Of that, and yeah, and Giant Bomb is not what it used to be. They were purchased by company after company after company, and people got tired of it. And just like Jeff Gerstmann obviously doesn't want to do anything with them anymore because just the way it was handled. But it was huge news, that it was proof that like there was dirty money being sent around basically. And since that incident, how bad it was for IO Interactive, the people who made Kane and Lynch, they're no longer around. Right. Funnily enough, like, it's not worth it. It's not worth the PR. It's not worth the chance of getting caught, and it's not worth the legal action for a company like EA, Ubisoft, or Square Enix, or any of these major AAA publishers to do that kind of stuff. It's not worth it for them. It's just like they can get away with making a bad game, right? And like Skull and Bones, I think, is the perfect example. It's like, yeah, they released Skull and Bones and it sucked. They just, they released Valhalla, 2 or 3 years ago. They just released a new Prince of Persia game. They make hella bank off of Rainbow Six Siege, and they've got great promotion off of X Defiant. They don't care that Skull and Bones isn't good. They don't care at all, because they got all these other games that are getting positive attention. And also they make Just Dance. Like, they're fine.
They're rolling in dough.
Yeah, like they can afford to make a bad game or a couple bad games a year, as long as they continue to roll out like games that people are playing and doing live service stuff with. They cannot afford to have the legal action and the reputation of we paid I don't know we paid Luke Stevens or Angry Joe Reviews $50,000 to say that Star Wars Outlaws is the greatest game of all time. They can't afford that, because if that gets out, there's legal ramifications. They will be sued by the government if they do it, and it's just like, it's not worth it. And if you think that's how it operates, you're severely misinformed. And it's just like again, one of the last times that this happened, it was such a big news story that anyone who had any intention of doing anything like that won't do it. Brandon did a really good, Darth Chaco did a really good breakdown of how this actually works, like how getting invited to these events. He talked about the Alien Romulus event.
Yeah.
And he's like, do these companies sugar you up and butter you up and try to give you the greatest time of your life while you're playing this video game or watching this movie? 1000%. Are they going to send you the coolest care package in the world for Star Wars Outlaws, or for the next Rainbow Six, or for the next Madden, whatever? If you're a Madden content creator, you're going to get the coolest, signed by
X player. You get to play with this player. You get to go to the photography event, whatever the EA wants to throw at you.
100%. We want to invite you to come play with Brett. We're going to play Madden with Brett Favre, and like, whoa. And of course you're going to think that Madden's super cool because you got to play it with Brett Favre. So and I could understand if people are like, I think how much overreach that some of these publishers and media companies have in their promotional content for content creators is a little gray area of ethics. I 100% agree. But that's not what people are arguing. They're saying that you're getting paid, you're getting a paycheck, that money is being exchanged for you to say that you like this thing. No. They are buttering people up for sure. They're trying to give people the best experience.
Mhm.
And sometimes the products they're promoting are actually just good, and then people are just like, "Yeah, it was a really good product, and I had an even amazing time at this event, so I'm gonna say I love the game." Um, but also, I the other thing, and sorry if this is very tangential, is like Skull and
Yeah.
Bones is, I think, a really good example. Do you know what didn't happen with Skull and Bones?
That it didn't take off as a live service game and it just kinda died after a couple weeks?
No. No promotional events. No
You're right.
no to my knowledge, no package deals, no, like, "Hey, here's a cool pirate ship," or "Here's a peg leg thing we're gonna
They
send
didn't really
you."
push it.
I don't believe, and they didn't push it because they knew it was a game that they were contracted to make, and it probably wasn't gonna do well, and so they're not gonna have influencers talk like, I you're gonna send all this stuff, and then the influencers are gonna feel bad, and so Ubisoft, I'm sorry for anyone who hates Ubisoft, the executives at Ubisoft are smarter than you are. They are.
They
Uh,
are.
they know when a product they're releasing is probably not gonna be the greatest thing ever, but they still have to do it, and they know it's going to sell, but it's probably not gonna sell super great. They're not going to promote it. They're not going to do these huge events. You know, I'm sure that there was some type of event for Skull and Bones, but that was very much a don't need to go crazy with it. I think they're going crazy with Star Wars Outlaws because it has potential to impress a lot of people. I think Assassin's Creed Shadow will get the same treatment. That I think
Mhm.
they have a lot of confidence in that game, and they'll want to push it as much as possible. Um, I know that EA does this a lot when they feel really good about stuff. When they have a
They did with Jedi
when a
Survivor
new Battlefield
years.
is coming out.
I remember them doing a
Yeah,
Jedi
they,
Survivor
I
with,
mean,
with
and they
Chaco and then
they
like
really
Ruthless
when
Night
we
Sister and
were
a couple other
yeah
creators
when we were in
where
London,
they're
the
yeah.
double decker buses had Cal Kestis all over them, and they were really confident in that game. And I think they should have been because as much as I dislike a lot of aspects of that game, it was a very good game. It was a well-made game, and they should be proud of that game. Um, and I think I think it's you definitely see people that like me that are like prefer the first game to the second, but that second game really stuck with a lot of people, and um, I think that they knew that they were proud of it and they wanted to push it and they wanted to do cool stuff with it because they knew they would get a good reception out of it. Outlaws still has the potential to stink. I want that to be
Yeah.
very clear. It still has the potential to be not a good game based on people's early view of it. It seems like it's not going to be a bad game. It very much seems like this game will not suck. It may not be the greatest thing ever. It may not be the greatest Star Wars game ever. It may not even be in the top 10 Star Wars games of all time. I still think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be good. I think the people who are out there that are just trying to tear the game down are sad
Yep.
and pathetic. Um, like play the game. If you don't like it, sick, dude.
Make your
Say go
video
on
and
the
shut the
internet and
fuck
say I
up.
don't like the game. I played the game. I didn't like it. I think it's boring. If you like it, you have weird taste in video games, make that video, go on your way. Talk about Jedi Survivor. Talk about KOTOR, man. Like there's so much to KOTOR. Just keep talking about KOTOR. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah. And to going back
Um,
to the like the whole like creator like disclosure thing because that's also what bugs me about this discourse of like, oh, they're paying creators to talk positive about the game. Bitch, you have to like disclose that in a video. That is literal legal law. There are creators right now getting into shit because guess what? You have to disclose that. Like one of the biggest creators on this platform is getting fucking dragged for that. You have to legally disclose these things when you're in a paid partnership. A bunch of creators I follow in the gaming sphere always disclose it. Like I know like creators I follow that are like Epic partners. I know creators like obviously Choco and like Mesa Windu and this or that like have disclosed, hey, I got the game for free. They didn't pay me anything. They just told me to play the game for 4 hours and then they just checked on me and stopped the footage. And like they also
Yeah,
didn't record people's footages. They told people open OBS and just do it yourself. Like Ubisoft, like I know the ins and outs of the what the demo was. Like I don't know like the details of the gameplay of it all because I'm like purposely avoiding it, but like the deal, the handshake deal of like how Ubisoft operated. It's just all right. Here's the demo. Here's a really early build of the game. It's like 10 versions behind. Oh, we're just gonna jump around different story points. Have fun for 4 hours, and then they just were like, "Did you enjoy it? Yes, no. What did you like? What did you didn't like?" That's it.
yeah,
It's like they didn't pay
yeah.
creators.
It's very
There was a
simple,
conspiracy
and
behind
and,
it.
and
It's just that's it.
yeah, it's. I think people like to make it more complicated than it actually, or people want it to be more complicated than it is. They want it to be more sinister than it actually is. Um, it's it's just one of those things of there are I don't want to put all the blame on grifters and bad actors in social media, but I do think it does play such a huge part in it. There's other things going on. I do think that companies like Ubisoft can do better as companies. They can do better by their customers, by the people who play their games. I think that's a genuine complaint to have. I think that you should have respect for the people who play your games. You should have respect for their time. You should have respect for their money. Uh, they pay your salaries at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's 100% accurate. At the at the end of the day, my personal experience with video games as a whole is I have spent very little on microtransactions in video games as a whole.
Mhm.
I've never bought a battle pass. The the live service stuff I think is cool. I think it's great that we have the opportunity to make games last longer,
Mhm.
um, and, continue on experiences. I think that's really cool. I do not need to buy Fortnite skins. I don't need to buy Counter-Strike weapon skins.
Yeah.
That has 0 appeal to me. Um, and I get that it has appeal to other people, but when I look at something like Warframe,
Mhm.
or XDefiant, where I'm just like, I think it's great that we have these games that you can pay $0 for and get seemingly endless entertainment out of them. I think that's awesome. And Outlaws obviously doesn't fall into that camp because it's a full price game,
Yeah.
but you know, I still like I'm gonna buy it, probably the day or 2 after it comes out. It depends on where
Yeah.
I am. I don't know if I'll even be at home when it comes out. I'm currently in my parents' house, in Georgia, which is why I don't have, like, microphone or anything like that, and their internet's a little wonky. They live kinda far out in the country. Um, but, like, I'm gonna play it when I have the time to play it, and I'd like to
Mhm.
play it when close to when it comes out. And, maybe the game will be plagued with performance issues. Who knows? Like Survivor
Yeah.
still has performance issues to this day. Um, and
Which is
that's
why I'm
unfortunate. And
playing it
I
on
don't.
PS5, baby. Yeah. Not playing on
Yeah, I don't have a
PC.
PS5. I play everything on PC. Uh, it just means I need to get better hardware. I just need to buy a better graphics card.
Oh
Obviously,
yeah, you
yeah.
definitely need a 4090 to play
For
Outlaws. You
I do.
definitely and you need like a
I
Ryzen
do.
9 5800X for sure.
No, I'll get the Intel i9. But no, like, uh, yeah, like I'm gonna play it. I'm excited to play it. I uh, I am hopeful. My I have medium expectations for this game. I think this is a game that could very easily get very boring very quickly. If they go down like a repetitive task, do chores for other people, fetch quests, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it can very easily, become that for 40 hours. And that would be really sad. But I also think they have the opportunity to make a really cool game that feels really special. Um, and we will just have to wait and see in the next 2 weeks if that happens.
Yeah.
I think I think we're kind of on that tipping point of it could lean either way. And again, I don't think the game will be bad. I think based on everything we've seen, based on the feedback we've gotten from people who've gotten their hands on it, I don't think the game will be bad. I think the game won't hit for a lot of people. I do think the non-Jedi aspect means that some people just it's not going to hit,
Yeah.
which is fine. Weird, but fine. Um, I think I think there's a potential that the game will could be very average to above average, and people will interpret that as terrible, which is stupid.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to be like group thought logic here. Like I am generally in the same camp as Chase here. Like I think the game is gonna be like I said, like right now my expectations are just medium. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a Ubisoft type of game. I know what Ubisoft's kind of like formulas are with like the Division, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry. Like, okay, it's roughly gonna be around there budget wise. It's gonna be a really like okay to really good story, just depending on how it goes. And I'm set up to be anything. Like I'm not gonna go in going, oh my god, this is gonna be the next greatest game of all time. I'm gonna go and going, yep. If it's a Ubisoft game, if it wows me like Jedi Fallen Order did or Jedi Survivor did when it first came out, or like Battlefront 2 did when it first came out, like where I'm like, whoa, this is a little bit more than I thought it would be, then to me the game lived up to its expectations and succeeded them. If it doesn't, I don't really care. Like I'll do my review on here on Pod Ones and then just move on with my day. Like I'm not gonna like make it my entire personality. And like we're not gonna shift content to just being like, oh my god, Outlaws is the worst thing ever made. Here's this article proving why people like it. And you're the worst fucking person ever. No, we're not gonna grift that
Yeah,
way, and it's not who we are.
you know what? It's funny. I don't know what made me think about this. Is the people who rage bait or the people who say that these things are the worst games of all time, and they harp on these things, like the amount of content that I see about Star Wars Outlaws being the worst game of all time, or Starfield being the worst game of all time. People still making videos on Starfield,
Really?
whatever, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, people still make videos on Starfield about how terrible it is.
The game's
Um,
almost a year old, like 3 months.
it'll be a year old next month. Um,
Jesus.
but you know what I think is hilarious? When games are actually bad, like actually truly bad, like Lord of the Rings Gollum or Kong Skull Island,
Or Walking Dead Destinies
people
and
don't make content like yeah, people don't actually make content on those games because when you're being honest, like yeah, it's a bad game. Everyone sees it and is like, yeah, it's a bad game. Um, like I can't think of anyone who like harped on the fact that Lord of the Rings Gollum was so bad. Like, despite it being a Lord of the Rings game, it was a
Mhm.
Lord of the Rings licensed game. People were like, "Yeah, oh, I can't believe that they released a game that bad." Anyways, moving on. I hear really bad game,
Yeah.
and it's like when it's truly bad, people don't actually talk about it that much because it's just bad. But when it's like a game that you'll get a lot of attention for saying it's bad, like something like Star Wars Outlaws or Starfield, because I think those games do have fan bases. Those games genuinely are not that bad.
Mhm.
Star Wars Outlaws we'll see, but like when I see stuff like um like Destiny 2 or Halo Infinite, or Call of Duty, right? Oh, it's the worst Call of Duty of all time. Like, is it? I don't think it is. But you say
It's
that
like, have you
because
played Call of Duty Ghosts, my guy? Or you played Advanced Warfare? No, then shut the fuck
Ghost was
up.
bad, Big Red 1 was really bad. Hey, Advanced Warfare was good. Uh, um, but no, like it's one of those things of like, they say Modern Warfare 3 is the worst Call of Duty of all time.
It's
People still
not.
play the crap out of that game. It's still super popular. It's just one of those things that I have to imagine that people who wanna make content like that, they have to, like there's people who are going to like this game. It's not the worst game ever, but if I say it's the worst game ever, there will be a discussion around that versus I said Lord of the Rings Gollum was bad and the worst game ever, and people are like, "I mean, yeah, what about it? Of course it's bad. Moving on." Um, and it's just one of those things of like it's so sad that that's kind of the state we're in with the wasted potential of social media.
I mean, yeah, it's like, again, shocker, negativity is what drives this platform. Like, we've all known this. But
Yeah, and again, I think more people are becoming cognizant of that people are using negativity to garner views and that they're just saying that things are bad for the sake of saying that they're bad. Um, and I'm glad to see more and more people that are like, yeah, I don't trust like those people on YouTube that say everything is bad.
yeah. Um Again, I've been kind of keeping my ear to the ground with what's going on at D23 right now. They're still on Disney Animation, so I have no idea when Lucasfilm's gonna come up. I'm assuming they're probably gonna be last generally because they always go like Disney Animation, Pixar, then they'll probably hit Marvel, then Star Wars. That's kind of their pattern of like content. So I have been kind of keeping my ear to the ground with people tweeting stuff about it because they're still on Moana right now.
Has anything interesting come out? Moana 2? Has anything interesting been discussed? Was there anything?
Dwayne the Rock Johnson, yeah, I guess that's something to talk about. But like again, I've been purposely been keeping my ear to the ground with that to see if there's any Skeleton Crew news or anything Star Wars related. And I'm like, nope, it's still Disney Animation. But I do feel like we kind
Yeah.
of hit the nail on the head with Outlaws. I feel like
Yeah.
we're starting to go in circles a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Um,
we could call it here and then hop
yeah,
on the D23 train, and then we can maybe talk about that later on at some point if anything
yeah,
Star Wars does come out. No promises that it will. They've definitely not done Star Wars before, when everyone thought they were. Um, but yeah, um, I'm excited for Outlaws. I'm gonna play it, and I hope it's really good. And if it's not really good, well, that's a shame. But I won't cry about it.
yeah. Again, I'm pretty much on the same boat. I guess we got to do the stereotypical Pod Ones podcast thing. Chase, where can the good people follow you?
Oh, you can always follow me on TikTok at Forward Into the Black, talking about Star Wars pretty much exclusively. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've been doing a lot of lives recently. So if you see me live or you see anyone live that I'm in there, come in, say hey. We're usually doing open discussions and stuff with a bunch of people and talking about all the new Star Wars stuff, all the fun stuff. So yeah, find
Yeah,
me on there. How about
and
you? Where can we find you?
oh, you can find me at Hereth Productions on TikTok and Instagram. Hereth Edits on Twitch. If you want to watch me get carpal tunnel in real time, watch me cry myself to sleep as I try to be Jordan, you can find me over there on twitch.tv. Play some rhythm games. Also, that just heard a bunch of the controllers fell over. Anyway, and of course, you can find me here at the Pod Ones to talk about Outlaws for the next. I don't know what I'm going to do with Outlaws, but we'll figure it out when we get there. Um, and I guess tune in next week because we're gonna have our House of Dragons roundtable for the finale. If you are interested in that, I know Chase is really interested in that roundtable. They're the number one.
You know, have that they have that new series that it seems interesting, and I may check that out. Um, but yeah, how was the finale of season two?
It's a typical Game of Thrones finale, like, like the penultimate episode is like the whoa, holy shit episode, and then you have the finale that just kind of like sets pieces up. Maybe it does a couple shocking things, and it just kind of pushes the envelope a little bit forward for the next season.
Okay,
And
because it was always like
people are
episode
mad
9 in Game of
because
Thrones.
yeah, people are mad because it didn't have whoosh whoosh battles and whoosh whoosh dragon fire, so it's automatically as bad as season 8, which is like that's never been the appeal of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragons. I'm more interested in the dialogue and the characters because that's where the story is interesting. So it's like, why are people bitching about this?
Nope, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's all about power scaling. How do you not know that?
God, because I
Anyways,
didn't.
this has been fun. And yeah, we'll see you guys talk about House of the Dragon with the rest of the gang, and then more Star Wars stuff with me and the rest of the gang as well. See y'all.